What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog here at Seminole Casino, Coconut Creek for my weekly 5-10 game. If you were watching the news last week, you saw that the state of Florida had a huge hurricane coming barreling towards us. Category 5, Category 4, 150 mile per hour winds, storm surge. It was not looking good. I'm going to try to navigate around here. Luckily for me, and I don't even really like to say luckily because, it was luckily for South Florida. South Florida did not get hit at all. The storm came straight towards Tampa, then went over the state towards Orlando, and then Daytona Beach. West Palm Beach, Port St. Lucie area did get some tornadoes and stuff, but luckily for us, it wasn't too bad. And I mean us as in Miami, Fort Lauderdale area where I'm at. So that storm was yesterday, Wednesday. It is now Thursday, walking in here to the game. Got a great lineup. Yeah, today's lineup is pretty awesome. Some heavy hitters, some action players. It should be fun. Hoping for the best for everybody in Tampa, Orlando, Daytona Beach, Port St. Lucie, West Palm Beach, anyone affected by the hurricane. Hope you guys are doing okay, and hopefully the recovery is getting there. But yeah, it's a pretty rough time. 2 hurricanes back to back. Let's move on now to something a little bit more positive, which is some 5-10 no limit poker at Coconut Creek. We are here, gonna head inside, get some chips. Let's go. All right, third hand of the night. I'm still waiting for 2 or 3 players to get their chips from the cashier and sit down. We're 6-handed here when there's 2 limps to me. I raise pocket kings on the button to 75 and get 2 callers from these limpers. 3 ways in position to 8, 3, 5, 2 diamonds. An overpair, backdoor flush draw. Really liking this flop. It's pretty unconnected too, meaning I don't think they're going to have many 2 pairs on this board. I bet pretty big, $200. Thinking I'll get called by all pairs, all straight draws, all flush draws, and I do get some action when both the under-the-gun limper and the cutoff player make the call. When you bet the flop with an overpair and get 2 callers and the turn pairs that top card, not always great to see, especially when the cutoff player now leads out for a $400 bet. He's saying he's got a good hand, but it's kind of hard for me to believe him just yet. Would he lead out here with trips, or would he try to check raise? Could he be doing this with a pair of 5s, 6s, or 7s, or a flush draw? Can't get rid of my pocket kings just yet, so I make the call, and I get a little bit worried when the under-the-gun player also puts in $400. I feel like one of these guys could easily have an 8 here, could possibly up against a flush draw, and maybe a pair that's worse than mine. I don't know. Not feeling great about the situation going to the Jack of Hearts river. Under the gun now checks over to me. Cutoff player who let out on the turn checks, so I'm pretty sure I have him beat. But if we bet here, are we going to get called by worse hands? I decided to make a nitty, tight check back, and it's good I do when the under the gun player shows pocket aces. A slow-played trap for him, and I end up losing aces to kings on the third hand of the night. Anytime you get aces to kings, it's always a bad beat or a cooler, but I would say I lucked out here. He decided to slow play. I got a pretty good run out, and the straddle wasn't on yet. I'll take that as a win. Straddle usually becomes mandatory after about an hour, so we're still playing 5-10. There's a call, a raise to 35. I re-raise 125 with a beautiful ace queen of clubs in the big blind. I get 2 callers here, so 3 ways to king 8-5, 2 clubs. Nut flush draw for me, but I decided to check out of position, looking to potentially check raise. Middle position player checks, and now the initial raiser in the cutoff fires out a bet of $200. Facing this $225 bet, I could go with the plan and check raise, or I could just call, and this time I decide to just call, thinking that it's pretty likely he's got a king, which he's probably never folding, or maybe even 2 pair or a set. Turn card's a jack, now giving me even more outs. I now have a straight out. I have a potential ace out if he has a king, and I also have clubs as well. I check to my opponent for a second time, and now he fires out $450, leaving himself with around $800 behind. I think it's pretty evident my opponent's got a very strong hand. Check jamming all in really wouldn't make too much sense because I don't think I have any fold equity, so I'm just going to call, try to hit a straight or a flush. If I do, I'll lead out on the river. If I miss, I'll just check fold. So 450 going in the middle. Big pot brewing here. We need a club or an ace. We miss all those outs, but we get there the hard way with a 10, giving me the nut straight. I lead jam all in for $1,000, and my opponent snap calls me. Always great to see when you have the nuts. What a sick run out for me, and even sicker when my opponent shows pocket eights for a flop set. Some bad run for him. We got there the hard way and end up taking down over a $2,000 pot.
Sorry, that was a bad beat. Jesus Christ.
Did I get chips?
Yeah, go get your chips from here.
The table is full, the straddle is on, and I've got pocket queens. Queen of diamonds, queen of hearts. I raised to $75 under the gun, and there is no shortage of action when I get 5 callers here for $75, going 6 ways with pocket queens. Not the best odds, but hey, still, I'll take it. Let's see a flop. King, 6, 7 with a flush draw. Ugh, not my favorite. I check, and the player next to me decides to check. The player next to him decides to bet for $250. Now, this particular player is definitely capable of putting in some bets with some mediocre hands, some bad hands. He's definitely capable of bluffing, is what I'm trying to say. So when the cutoff player folds, and the button player folds, and the under the gun player folds, I think I'm going to have to look him up. At least one bet here with pocket queens. He could be doing this with straight draws. He could be doing this with flush draws. Could have a 6 or a 7 or ace high. Can't just automatically think he's going to have a king or have me beat when he bets. So I make the call, the other players fold, and now we're heads up to an ace on the turn. I check another overcard to my pair, and my opponent instantly checks this one back. Interesting. 4 on the river, flush draw misses. I check again, hoping this one just goes check, check, and I win, but that doesn't happen. He assembles a bet now of $350, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, I just do not believe him. I don't believe that he would be betting this sizing with a King X hand. I think he bet a little bit smaller with a hand like King 10 or King Jack or King 9. Maybe he would even just check a king, given the fact that there's an ace on the board. I also just don't think he really ever has 2 pairs here, because I think 2 pairs in sets would bet the turn when the ace comes. So, I don't know. Maybe he could just have ace X of diamonds. I decided to get a little bit curious and look him up with a call for $350, and I'm punished when he shows me the King 7 suited for 2 pair on the flop, and a nice check back on the turn, and a great value bet on the river. Definitely not a nice hand played by me. Should have just folded the flop. It's pretty strong betting into all those players. Yeah, just kind of punted off an extra $500 that I didn't need to. There is a ton of action on this table, but unfortunately over the next 2 hours or so, I'm just incredibly card dead, not really picking up any playable hands. Finally, after a long time folding, I pick up something nice. Queen, Jack of hearts in the cutoff. I call a raise from early position. Button calls, small blind calls, 4 ways to a 10 high board, giving me a queen high flush draw. When it checks to me, I could bet here, could check. Multi-way, I decided check. And the button puts out a really small bet of $75 into a $300 pot. Once the early position raiser check calls, I considered check raising, but I'm getting a great price. I don't want to check raise and then get jammed on, so I just make the call and hit the money card on the turn. It is the 6 of hearts giving me the queen high flush. I check, and now the button player, which I assumed he was going to, checks behind. Final card is the 3 of diamonds, so now any 4 will make a straight. When the early position player checks, I'm going to bet here, and I want to bet a sizing that looks somewhat bluffy-ish. I make it $500 to go here. Holding the second nuts here with the queen high flush, we're obviously looking for a call, and it looks like my opponent is contemplating call or fold. He's thinking, and then he raises me to $1,500. With the second nuts, I'm never folding, so I make the call and get shown the ace high flush. Ace high flush versus queen high flush, losing over a $3,500 pot. Nothing I could do there. Second nuts versus first nuts on this board. Just going to lose our money. I guess it could have been worse. I was thinking about leading out on the turn. I guess he could have raised bigger. I was calling basically any bet. I'll just chop this one up to a cooler. All right, I'm genuinely curious. How many of you caught the mistake I was making that last hand when I kept saying I had the second nuts when actually my queen high flush was the third nuts? Okay, a lot of you caught that mistake. All right, good. Now, how many of you guys paused the video, took time out of your day to go down into the section below where the comments are filled, and write a comment trying to correct me, saying, actually, Lex, you got the third nuts, not the second nuts? Well, all of you guys who commented, I was pulling a prank on you. You're very gullible. I got you. I learned about 3 years ago on YouTube that comments help the algorithm. The more comments you get, the more YouTube thinks people like your video. So sometimes I'll just say some stupid shit. I'll just make up stuff or say the wrong stuff in order to get more comments on my video. So I appreciate that. If you guys commented trying to correct me on that, I'm going to leave you guys a like and a comment back. All right, let's move on. Got a couple more interesting hands left to come. As the night dwindles down, I do get pocket aces and see a flop where I bet my opponent folds, so win a small one there before picking up king jack of diamonds out of position. There's a raise from the button, a small blind call. I re-raised to $350 with my king jack suited. Button makes the call and small blind makes the call, and we go in 3 ways to queen 8-4 with 1 diamond. I c-bet $400, button folds, small blind calls. When the button calls my re-raise pre-flop and then calls on this flop, I definitely think he can have a queen, possibly some straight draws. Turn 6, he checks over to me. I could continue bluffing. I didn't pick up any extra equity, and this card is better for some hands that he could potentially have, so I decided to just give up and check this one back, and I do hit a jack on the river, giving me a pair. When my opponent checks, I could bet again, like I said, but I'm just happy with checking this one down. And I win. I get lucky, my opponent says. I got there on the river with a pair. Looks like he probably had a slightly smaller pair. And a nice medium-sized pot is going my way at the end of the night. We've now been playing for around 7 hours. Everyone's getting kind of tired, including me. I think we're going to call it after this dealer before the button raises to 75. I re-raise ace-jack suited at a position of 300. Going to be re-raising a lot more when we're short-handed. Button makes the call, and I flop top pair on an ace-8-3 rainbow board. On such a unconnected, dry flop, I'm going to bet very small. $150 into around a $600 pot, and maybe it induced my opponent to raise when he makes it $350 to go. Never folding my hand. I think raising again would be an overplay, so I just make the call, and the turn is a queen. I check over to him, and now he slows down and checks this one back, and the river pairs to 3, and I have to decide what should I do here with my ace-jack. As this hand was played, I just don't think we're ever beat. I think a lot of the time my opponent's going to have a weaker ace-x hand, so I decided to go with an overbet here of $1,500, specifically trying to get him off a chopping hand. A hand like ace-10, ace-7, ace-6, all those hands we were chopping with, aces and 3s with a queen. I'm betting this sizing to try to get him to fold out those hands that if he called, we would chop with. Given the fact that he did not bet the turn, I don't think he ever has a set or ace-queen or ace-king, so I'm pretty confident this bet is going to work, or if he calls, we're going to chop. I do feel like it is somewhat of a free roll for me. My opponent is thinking, he's contemplating his options, and eventually he lets his cards go. We take down this last pot. I was down early on, a few $1,000s, made a comeback, and only lost around $300. I'll take that as a win. If you're interested to play this 5-10 game at Seminole Casino Coconut Creek, send me an email at lexopoker@gmail.com or send me a message on Instagram or Twitter. I'll try to get you into the game. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see ya.